Hey guys, welcome back to another Spy Family Sunday. Today I am here to talk about Spy Family Chapter 112, Part 2. This chapter was hilarious. I found it a lot more charming this go around, especially with the newer kids that we're being introduced to, but I loved it. I can't wait to see what happens next. So if you're new to the channel, please consider liking, subscribing. Definitely leave me a comment because I like talking about these chapters afterwards. So this chapter starts off with both of the boys that were, play fighting at the end of last chapter. The freckled boy we now know as Freddy and Tertius. So, they're sweating bullets. They're like, oh, I don't want to fight. I just want to, end this amicably. And all of the kids in class are sort of freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh, should we call a teacher? What's going to happen? And the coolest thing about this chapter is that Anya is reading everybody's mind. And most of the kids are like, wait, isn't Anya in this class? Like, Red Circus Anya? Like, the kidnapping? Like, she's really brave. Like, she should be the one that comes in between them. And it's really cool because people admire her strength and her courage. And this shocks Anya. She's like, oh my God, like, people look up to me. And of course, there's this panel and, Anya's looking a little bit cocky and she's like, so the people yearn for a hero. That's cool. Let me just step in. And so she's feeling pretty suave. It's natural for people to sort of get a big head when people are feeding their ego. We know Anya is not egotistic, but, she is funny. And so she decides to put an end to this conflict. And then Anya's like, if I can show everybody how cool I am, I'll make a boat ton of friends. Of course, she's thinking about her dad and how her dad wants to meet a bunch of these children's parents, so it's a win-win, and she's like, all of this in the name of world peace, of course. So she's talking to both of them and she's like, let's cool our jets here. Freddy and Tertius are thinking to themselves like, oh my God, another obstacle. We just want to get this done. Tertius is thinking to himself like, oh, so the rumors are true. Like, she is the girl that punched the chairman's son. So he doesn't really have like a good view of Anya at this point. And she's like, I've come to, end this war. And by that, I mean, you're snot. And Freddy's kind of like, how does she know about that? And, he's kind of freaking out. While he's distracted, Anya's like, surprise attack. And she sort of tries to go for the mole that's on his face. And she freezes and she's like, on second thought, I really don't want to touch somebody else's snot, which is a good call. Like, that's not sanitary. Like, girl. She sort of freezes. She's like, oh my God, that was close. Almost lost my composure. Tertius is thinking like, oh, this girl is like really violent. And he's imagining that like Anya just totally beat up the guy that was like kidnapping them on the school bus and like how she's a thug and all this stuff. Anya's thinking to herself, I am not that violent. And I don't know what this is about, but Tertius for some reason keeps calling Anya like a kitten, and it's kind of like, ugh. Not the best nickname, but it's literally a pet name, and he's like, what, my kitten wishes to play? And it's just like, bro, calm down. You just met her, relax. And so he's trying to put the moves on her to prevent, himself from falling to the ills of her violence or whatever. And he's like, chivalry is what we need. He offers her a rose and he's like, no woman could possibly resist. So Anya takes the rose and she's like, a tool. And there's like this really funny panel of her looking just completely like demented. But Anya's thinking to herself like, this is a tool because she didn't want to touch the snot that's on his face, so she's thinking ahead. And then we get like this little sort of flashback with Tertius and he's being trained on swordsmanship, how to dodge, how to parry, things like that, the foes he'll be facing. So he is from a kingdom, like he is a prince. So his swordsmith is just telling him, you need to grow up and get strong. And Tertius is like, sure, I'll drink a lot of milk. We get this funny panel of Tertius drinking all this milk and his swordsmith is like, don't drink that much, you'll get diarrhea. And so Tertius is psyching himself up. He's like, I need to be confident, I need to be tough, and Anya sort of lunges at him with the stem of the rose. And we get these two funny panels of her just like coming at him. And I'm not gonna lie, like Anya's face looks pretty creepy in these panels. I'm like, I would be scared too. I'm like, yo, go. Can you back up? And so his life is flashing before his eyes because he's so dramatic. He's like, oh, father, mother, my steward, forgive me, and like all this stuff. Anya gets a crick in her neck and she drops the rose. And it's so funny because it just happens to land on his face perfectly to knock the mole off of his face. And so the mole comes off. Freddy like lunges forward. He's like, the evidence. And so he grabs it, has been destroyed. And you know, he tells Tertius like, see, you had some gunk on your face. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then the teacher comes into the classroom and she's like, take your seats, you know, class is about to begin. Tertius is apologizing and you know, Freddy's like, hey, no big deal. And he turns to Anya and he's like, you really saved my bacon. And Anya's like, please don't touch me or your snot hand. And Tertius turns to Anya and he gives her a compliment. He's like, and thanks to you as well, my dear kitten. And so now we sort of know that what is happening here. Like, Tertius is being extra nice to Anya. He calls her his kitten. He wants to give her roses. And I'm just like, oh boy, like, here we go. Tertius is like, perhaps when I return to my kingdom, I'll reward you with a bunch of jewels. And he's thinking to himself, like, not that we have that. And Anya's like, you know, it's not good to tell lies. Tertius is like, how does this girl know? Like, she moves with such certainty and like, and she's unmoved by my bravado. And she returned my flower of love. And so, yeah, since he's been in Estonia, like now Tertius is like, you can tell what's happening. He's gonna become infatuated with Anya. So here we go. And so the teacher, once again, is like, hey, you know, sit down or you're going to get a Tenitris bolt. We are not privy to the teacher's name. That has not been a detail that is given to us yet. But I'm assuming some kind of break has happened because Becky is like, oh, Anya, how was your first class of the day? And Anya comes rolling up with Connie, Freddy, Tertius, and Arnold. And Freddy is just smiling. Tertius looks cocky. He's like, yeah. And and so Freddy's like, I'm Freddy from Hamilton Hall, and it's good to meet you, Anya. And then Tertius is like, perhaps I could visit your home later on today. I'd like to know how Estonians live. And so Anya is like, the power of Anya Forger has secured world peace. And she just looks so cocky, so full of herself. It is so funny. And Becky is like freaking out. She's like, oh my God, Anya, you've gotten 2 boys within the last hour. And so, you know, of course, Becky's mind is always in romance. So I'm pretty sure her romance heart is about to explode. And then Damien is just looking mortified. He looks so shocked. Shocked for several reasons, we can assume. Jealousy, and then the fact that people are gathering around her. So it was a funny chapter. I can't wait for, I'm not sure if this is going to like be a part 3, part 4, part 5, but I cannot wait for the next chapter. This was hilarious. The right amount of comedy that makes sense. And I'm loving these new characters. I'm not gonna lie. I like Freddy. I like his freckles, his little snaggletooth. I wasn't sure about Tertius at the beginning. But if this is gonna be like a running gag where he's like dying for Anya's affection, and then of course Damien's gonna be jealous, like we're in for some comedy gold here. That was the chapter. It was funny. I can't wait for the next one. It's not really, I don't feel like it's really building towards like some big reveal. I feel like maybe Indo Sensei is like, hey, we're going into a next semester. Anya needs different friends. Here are some more of the children. So I do feel like we're getting introduced to a new group of kids, which is great, you know, and following Anya and her adventures with, you know, these new friends that she's making. Now, one thing that does concern me is that, you know, I don't want Anya, I mean, Anya's already exploiting her powers. My fear is that, because let's think about this. Anya hasn't even told Becky that she can read minds. She's only told Damien. So that means that she has a lot of trust in Damien. So my biggest fear is that Anya gets too comfortable with reading people's minds and then responding to them like she did in this chapter, because, you know, Tertius and Freddy were like, huh? How does she know that? So it's kind of like, I am worried that she's going to get way too comfortable with this, and then somebody's going to find out that she can read minds that shouldn't know. There is a little bit of potential for some blowback here, but as long as Anya keeps herself in check, I don't think we have anything to worry about, but the chapter was funny. I can't wait for the next chapter. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments, and until next time, remember to be awesome and stay true.